In the early 1640s, New England's English settlements were growing in population but remained politically separate, each with its own charter, courts, and church discipline. External pressures were mounting. Relations with several native nations were tense after the Pequot War. Dutch traders at New Netherland competed for land and commerce along the Connecticut and Hudson rivers, and England itself was sliding into civil war, making royal attention and support uncertain. In this environment, 4 colonies, Massachusetts Bay, Plymouth, Connecticut, and New Haven, decided that mutual defense and coordinated policy were now necessities rather than ideals. In May 1643, they concluded what they called the Articles of Confederation of the United Colonies of New England, commonly remembered as the New England Confederation. It was not a merger and created no single government over all 4. Rather, it was a league for common concerns. Each member colony remained fully sovereign over its internal laws and churches, but they agreed to consult and act together on external threats, boundary disputes, and the return of fugitives and servants who crossed colonial lines. The structure was straightforward. Each colony appointed 2 commissioners to meet annually, or more often if emergencies arose. Decisions on major matters, especially war and peace, required a strong consensus, so no one colony could be dragged into conflict by another against its will. Although Massachusetts dwarfed the others in population and wealth, the colonies received equal representation in the commissioners' meetings, an early nod to the principle that small polities needed assurances when partnering with larger ones. Costs for any joint military action were to be shared in proportion to each colony's ability, typically measured by population of able-bodied men. The League's purpose was tested almost immediately. Tensions with the Narragansett and Niantic peoples flared in the mid-1645s, and the commissioners coordinated diplomacy and prepared militia quotas in case negotiations failed. The mere existence of a united front encouraged treaties rather than campaigns, which was precisely the kind of outcome the Confederation's founders had hoped to engineer. Yet from its earliest years, the Confederation revealed its limits. During the First Anglo-Dutch War in the 1650s, the southern colonies pushed for aggressive action against New Netherland, seeing a strategic opportunity to dislodge their commercial rival. Massachusetts Bay, wary of overreach and the costs of a wider war, refused to authorize hostilities. Because the articles required broad agreement, the plan stalled. The League's most consequential test came a generation later, during King Philip's War in 1675 to 1676. Although each colony mobilized its own militia, the Confederation provided a framework for joint strategy and resource pooling. Colonial leaders coordinated campaigns, shared intelligence, and divided responsibilities for frontier defense. The war's devastation across New England was immense, and the Confederation did not prevent the suffering, but it did help the colonies avoid operating at cross purposes at a moment of extreme danger. Changes imposed by the English crown gradually reduced the League's role. In 1662, a royal charter expanded and consolidated Connecticut's authority, and in 1664, New Haven was absorbed into Connecticut, reducing the original 4 members to 3. By 1684, it had effectively lapsed, replaced first by the Dominion and, after 1689, by renewed but more direct crown oversight of each colony.